Today what we're going to make is a pair of boots. Vic wants a pair of boots for a cosplay for Link. So I'm going to show how to make that, but it could be any kind of boots. Boots are boots. So what I took is I made the upper part and I just sewed the back seam up. And now we're going to last them. We're going to stretch them over the form. So we take the wooden form of the correct size and we start to stretch the leather over it. I'm using very small nails and I'm starting in the back. Why don't you come on in and get a nice close-up? Because for this stuff, you don't need to see me, you just need to see what I'm doing. Take my glasses off so I can actually see. And I'm not actually hammering them all the way down. I want to make it easier for myself when I have to pull these nails. So I'm getting the, leaving a little bit of the head sticking up so I can pull them a little more easily. Get a nail puller under there. So now for this area, it's kind of floppy, so I'm dividing it into sections. I'm putting a nail in the middle. Now I'll take each of these two bubbles that I've created, put a nail in there, turn it into, smaller and smaller bubbles. And what will happen when it dries is it'll shrink slightly, stretch even further onto the last. Divide and conquer. Then I got this big bubble right here. I want to split it into two. If you really want to stretch it, you can hammer your nail in at a steeper angle and it'll pull the leather as you go. That's kind of a cool trick that I learned over the years. So you go in, and rather than going down, push it out a little bit. Whoa, that didn't work. Genius move on my part. Push it in, and rather than going down, push it back. And it'll stretch that leather. So at this point, we're getting close. I got to deal with the back seam, which is a little bulky because it's got more leather, but that's all right. At this point, we're in pretty good shape. This whole area doesn't really need anything. I don't need nails in here. It's just going to hold. Even if it shrunk a little bit, it wouldn't shrink that much. So I'm sort of, at the point where it needs to be. So we're going to pause the video, and then we're going to go get the next part. Ready?
Yeah, it's gone.
So here's the next piece. And we have the vamp, which is the front part of a boot. And what we do, we put it over here and just generally Try to make sure that it's more or less square and sitting flush on here. Then I want to stretch the leather. This leather has a lot of stretch to it. So if I had known it had this much stretch, I could actually have used a smaller pattern piece to do this, because I'm getting so much stretch out of it, but that's okay. Never worked with this leather before. It's a modern chrome tanned upholstery type leather. So now I've got that, and what I want to do is it's got, if you can see down here, all these wrinkles. We don't want those wrinkles. So what I want to do is I want to kind of pull it and smooth it and get those out as much as possible. So I'm going to start on, in this case, the outside of the foot, though you wouldn't really have to. I'm going to put a nail in. I'm going to do the same thing now, pulling on the inside of the foot. And this leather is so very stretchy that I'm getting a ton of stretch. So I'm probably going to wind up with way more leather than I need. So I'm going to account for that. It's not that I did not expect this. I'm just taking some scissors and I'm trimming. I don't need that much leather. So then I can get in here to the toe. Or I can pull the toe back. Put a nail in. Ouch. Okay, the next, I'm splitting this bubble, so I'm going to try to pull more. Go here. Turn the big bubble into two smaller bubbles. Same thing will be over here. Take this big bubble, turn it into two smaller bubbles. Fair amount of finger strength does help. Take this bubble, divide it again. Take this bubble. First I want to secure it, and I'll split it into two. You see how I'm starting them and I'm pushing them in? That gives a little more stretch on the leather. If you've done this a lot, it doesn't take very long to last a pair of boots. It will take much, much longer for these boots to dry than it will for me to get this. Okay, so now when I look at this, I see I've got a little bit of bubble. If you were looking at it from the top, you'd see this part kicks out. You might even try shooting it from above. See how you can see this part here kicks out. And I really don't want that little bubble there. I want it to follow the last perfectly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab this leather, I'm going to pull it back as much as I can and try to remove that. And I think I did a pretty good job. Okay, now you can return to the normal angle. And that really did a nice job of defining that toe. Same thing here, basically, I'm just pulling it. The more you stretch it, the more definition the leather takes, the closer it is to what you originally or ultimately want it to look like. So I'm going right into the middle of the bubble. Try to put it in at an angle and stretch the leather back. Same thing here. Take this one, try to divide the bubble, put the nail at an angle, and it just pulls that leather back. I'll do this one next. Always wind up with way more nails around the toe than any place else. The one here that I'm going to do next. I really wouldn't have to do all of these. I've done enough boots to know which ones are going to be problems and which ones aren't. So pull this one. This one was like here. I pull it, secure it back here. So now I have all these bubbles back here. I'm not worried about those. Once this leather is dry, I'm going to take a razor blade. I'm just going to skive them off, make them a little thinner. I'm going to deal with a couple of these up front, though. I want to have about at least a ½ inch in of reasonably taut leather. You know, it's okay. I think I'm pretty well done there. So now I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to look for other spots that seem to be problematic. Do the same thing over here. Just making sure we get some anchoring all the way around. Maybe one more nail there. All right, maybe that one too. I thought I was done, but I think I'm not. Now this leather is super, super stretchy, and I have no trouble stretching it. But if my leather was a little bit more stubborn, I can use a set of lasting pliers. This particular one is over 200 years old, and I'm still using it. You grab a hold of the leather, and you can kind of rock, and it will really stretch it. This thing is also a hammer. You could turn around, hammer your nails in, or if you got the nail wrong, use the back end, use the nail puller. I've been using this one for about 30 years. It works really, really well. But it's, you know, it's very much an antique. Okay, so at this point, this boot is ready to dry. It really looks like a boot. Now my next step, once it's dry, would to come in, put some glue here where these layers overlap, and then sew up this back seam. But right now, it needs some drying time. So I'm going to unroll the bucket top, try to get it all nice, and call it a day.